Hi, good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Pam Walls. I'm an attorney at Community Legal Services in Philadelphia in our Health and Independence Unit, which combines public benefits practice with a number of legal issues that most directly affect older adults and people with disabilities, including issues around nursing homes, long-term services and supports, and some surrogate decision-making and guardianship work. So I'm happy to be here this morning, in particular for this panel, because it involves public benefits. Public benefits as an alternative to guardianship, and also public benefits like the challenges that public benefits can raise in decision-making. Public benefits play a really important role often in guardianships, and they can come up in a couple different ways. Public benefits issues can be what kicks off a guardianship. Often there are issues around accessing public benefits, particularly Medicaid, for people that may require someone to be able to get bank statements or to verify the amount of a pension, or a need for help managing a Medicaid application. And that can, in some cases, lead to the filing of a guardianship petition, where there may be less restrictive alternatives to get that work done. But also, public benefits can be a resource that can act as a less restrictive alternative to help provide a less restrictive alternative to guardianship or to plenary guardianship. And so, we will hear today from our speakers about ways that public benefits can be managed, particularly Social Security benefits, and services available through the Medicaid program and other programs that can help people in their own homes and provide housekeeping, assistance with activities of daily living, reminders to take medications, arranging transportation and accompaniment to medical appointments, supervision for people who need that due to dementia, service coordination, and just eyes on a person who needs some more supports to remain at home, but may not need a guardianship or a plenary guardianship. And so I'm really happy to be here with this panel today. I'm going to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker is Frank Magny from Social Security. He's going to be speaking remotely to us with his slides about a number of issues involving Social Security and SSI, and particularly around the issues of how those benefits are handled through the RIP payee system. After that, we are going to hear from Department of Human Services Deputy Secretary Juliet Marsala. She's the Deputy Secretary of the Office of Long-Term Living at DHS. And then finally, we are going to hear from John Kennedy, who is the President and CEO of Kennedy Law Offices, founded in 2001, and he will describe his practice. So I'm going to hand it off now to Frank Magny to get us started from Social Security. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this event. This is a wonderful opportunity, and it's a fantastic time to definitely meet whatever opportunity I have, because there's so much changes taking place in my agency. Just yesterday, our Commissioner, Frank Tiziano, was confirmed, which will usher in probably a little bit more stability as it relates to much of what you probably have seen in the headlines. Today's presentations are probably going to be a little bit on the brief side from an informational standpoint, because we know that there's going to be a lot of magic that happens as far as our breakout is concerned, and questions and answers. So please, if anything, it comes across and you have a question, we're going to allow plenty of time for that. The other aspect of this is if you do have any more interest in our programs, I do have presentations. I've made presentations for the Office of the Other Justices of the Court, and this tend to take about 45 minutes to an hour. I knew that this presentation today probably wasn't going to facilitate that, but let's get into some current events as it relates to field offices here in Pennsylvania and even beyond. The first is the change in which we are administering our appointments throughout the state. Since November of last year, we have been moving more to an appointment-based model. So for those of you that might be coming into an office or want to do business with the field office, I'm going to highly recommend that you get in contact with the office in advance, either through our national 1-800 number or through field offices, which I'll talk more about here in just a moment. But when you are kind of in the suite of our services, whether you have an appointment to apply for benefits or you do have what we call a post-eligibility appointment, which can commonly be a application for representative payee, you'll see that there are many modern features now to our appointment systems that allow you to log in advance, be notified basically a day in advance that you have the appointment with the field office. And we are getting a lot of really good feedback as far as maybe a change in these services. The ability of maybe walking into our field offices the next day to get immediate service. There is some annoyance. We do service our vulnerable populations. We do service any person that does have immediate needs, but we get tremendously positive feedback about the ability of setting up appointments, specifically a representative payee application. Because there's a date and time that's set out there for you. There's no unknown as to when you're coming into the office, as to how long you're going to be there, or whether or not the technician that really specializes maybe in that workload will be available to speak with you on that day. So some transitions that are taking place. This is somewhat of a trial program. As I've talked about stability with our new commissioner, we're kind of waiting to see the direction that he'd like to go overall. But with that being said, please, one takeaway I would have as our interaction today is please get in contact with us in advance. In so doing, as I had mentioned, our website is becoming more and more important to our customer service objectives, especially now as younger generations are coming online and reaching that pre-retirement age. Many more services are being provided. One that you might have seen in the news recently is the ability of updating direct deposit information. Now, with that being said, everyone has always been able to update direct deposit information through our website, but nowadays people are unable to do so over the phone. So our online services are going to basically bridge the gap in the ways that we are no longer able to potentially provide services in the ways that we wanted to, but also other enhancements. Just announced, any person that does have access to our website will have access to a digital Social Security card. This process, which is very much in its infancy, will probably make that paper card, which is actually linen, it's made it from the same material as our money, will become less and less relevant, and this is another step for Social Security to kind of move in to modern times as it relates to verification from any standpoint, maybe getting a job or verifying things for other public service or public health programs. As you can see right here, this does list our national 1-800 number. This is a really good resource as far as it's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and does allow for individuals to contact us right away. So if you are interested in making an appointment, the national 1-800 number is a really good resource as it relates to that. But when I do talk about, especially with groups like yourself, I'm remiss not to talk about our field office locator for a couple different aspects. Number one, especially as it relates to supplemental security income, field offices are jurisdictional programs. So in many cases, a Social Security card can be issued maybe from the Chicago field office if you live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or so on and so forth. But for many of these programs, especially if a person receives supplemental security income, which is a federal need-based program that's paid on the first of the month, you are going to have to go to the field office's jurisdiction. Our field office locator is that resource in order to allow you to find that field office jurisdiction. By using your zip code is how we collate these areas. You're able to not only find the addresses, but nowadays you are able, in most field offices, to find the field office number. And this number normally is prefixed with 888, but when you have deeper level questions as it relates to case assistance or anything, especially representative payee related or supplemental security income related, I do highly encourage that individuals do contact our field offices. In addition to the field office number, you can also gain the fax number. And this is probably the most efficient way in order to submit documents with field offices. Fax numbers are specific to each of those field offices, so if you do get the individual fax number for the field office, that's going to be the most efficient way to potentially submit medical information or any other information that related to claims or representative payee applications. Whenever I do have the opportunity to speak to any group of people, I always like to mention our scam and fraud awareness initiatives. As it relates to the Social Security Administration, we are the agency that is the number one most, the number one most impersonated agency as it relates to scams. So whether it be a text message, email, a phone call, more times than not, scammers try to use the Social Security Administration as a conduit to gain trust with an individual. I administer a program where I check in with older individuals to see if they're still with us. This is called a Medicare non-utilization number. So I know how difficult it is to contact people by telephone. And when I talk to most of them, I do recommend that anyone basically calling you or sending you things through the mail that are unknown, the majority of those are individuals that try to sell you something or defraud you from something. So it's with that in mind that I always like to get the message out that Social Security employees will never threaten an individual. Social Security does not have a way of suspending Social Security numbers. Since the Social Security number itself exists in two different kind of environments. Number one, with us, the Social Security Administration tracking earnings throughout an individual's lifetime to know how much we would pay them, either in a disability or retirement standpoint. But the Social Security number also exists in the financial realm as a personal identifier. And it's with that in mind that we really don't have an oversight to suspend the Social Security number so that it can't be utilized beyond just the uses that we have. So those threats are very hollow. One more thing that I would mention as far as scam and fraud awareness is concerned is that if you're ever uncomfortable with somebody maybe cold calling you from our agency, many of our employees are very, very aware of the challenges, especially amongst our elderly population, that people do go through, and our understanding, if they would just prefer, they hang up the phone and then contact the local field office to confirm validity. More times than not, if you are interacting with the Social Security Administration over the telephone, you're still able to do appointments over the telephone. You're going to be given a date and time in advance. So there is that familiarity between our agency and an individual. But in those cold calling types of situations, we really want people to be on the lookout for individuals that are saying that they're Social Security and not necessarily Social Security. And then finally, as it relates to probably the majority of questions that we'll probably have today as it relates to Social Security, it is the representative payee program. If you don't have a lot of familiarity with Social Security, a representative payee is an individual that receives benefits on behalf of an individual and then uses those benefits in care and support. More times than not, this is a face-to-face interview, but there's other considerations that can come in mind. A representative payee can apply without an individual being present, and it's with that in mind that we find, especially amongst these Office of Elder Justice Supports, that we find a lot of questions as it relates to that program. There are, of course, many organizations, guardianship organizations being included, that serve as representative payees, guardianship organizations, maybe long-term care facilities, and then, of course, family members at the time. Majority of elderly individuals don't get a representative payee throughout their lifetime, even though maybe near end of life they might need somebody to potentially help them navigate, whether it be the financial industry or just as we'll talk about long-term care, Medicaid. But as we do talk about representative payee, our online services can do two things. Number one, the child or family members can assist the individual in establishing a My Social Security account, thus giving them the ability to get benefit verifications or 1099s. And that is one way to assist an individual with services without applying to be a representative payee. The process itself can be quite extensive and sometimes can include medical information and the opinions of medical professionals and us appointing those representatives. But in addition to that, some of the most expanding services as it relates to representative payee are taking place at our representative payee portal. Still somewhat limited now, but from my understanding, from an advance notice standpoint, there are many other services that will be coming on our representative payee portal and more of a migration towards our online services. Once again, thank you so much. We have found that Pennsylvania has one of the largest growing elderly populations, so it's so apt that we're all able to come together and come up with great solutions for helping our elderly population, or whether that be our disability population also. So that's all I have for right now. I'm here for the Q&A, but we're going to move on now to our next speaker as it relates to long-term care and initiating guardianships.
Thank you, Frank. Good morning. Juliette Marzallo, Deputy Secretary for the Office of Long-Term Living. It is definitely a pleasure and honor to be spending time with you here today. I especially always appreciate the opportunity to highlight the Office of Long-Term Living, what we do, and how we can help. So the Office of Long-Term Living serves over 400,000 Pennsylvanians within our programs. The majority of our programs are long-term services and supports programs. So we run the span of home and community-based services programs, personal care homes, assisted living residences. We fund long-term care and nursing facilities. My team also oversees adult protective services for individuals aged 18 through 59. So there's a lot that we do in the Office of Long-Term Living to really help individuals, older adults and people with disabilities, to live their lives with dignity and respect, how they want to, in the least restrictive environments, hopefully within their communities as long as possible, surrounded by the people who they love and love them. And so in the context of the conversation today about public benefit alternatives to guardianship, I wanted to spend time highlighting some of the home and community-based services that I think are underutilized, and also talk a little bit about the sort of entryway and supports to help people access public benefits. So I'll start there. So with the Office of Long-Term Living for our home and community-based services, we have a department called the Pennsylvania Independent Enrollment Broker. And that is the sort of central door. There are no wrong doors to get to our services, but that is a central door to connect with our Community Health Choices waiver for dually eligible Medicare and Medicaid individuals, and individuals eligible for Medicaid who need long-term services and supports. They will go through the independent enrollment broker that will help them apply for Medicaid, learn about the different Medicaid programs available to them, and help them make choices about which program might be best to support them. And then also, as they go further along, which health plans or insurance coverage that administers the bulk of those programs can help them. This last year, we added an additional and very important service through our independent enrollment broker called the Beneficiary Support Services. We recognize that applying for Medicaid is complex. It can certainly overwhelm families that are trying to support their loved ones with their applications. And usually at the time where someone is applying for Medicaid, lots of things could be going on in their world that can, again, make things very overwhelming. So we added the Beneficiary Support Services as a resource for the applicant, for their families. It is meant to be temporary services where they have a dedicated person that can help them through the entire process. help educate them on what's needed, why it's needed to gather all the financial documents for the County Assistance Office, walk through the steps of the application, connect them to community resources such as community legal services if they have sort of more complex situations that might be a potential barrier to a sort of smooth application process. So I wanted to highlight that here. That support is available now for individuals. So if folks that you're working with are going through the Medicaid application process, be they in a nursing facility, be they in their own home, be they in a hospital, certainly they can connect with the beneficiary support services through the Pennsylvania Independent Enrollment Broker. For other individuals who might be aging into a disability or experiencing ongoing progressive cognitive issues that may at some point call their capacity to make their own decisions into question, I did want to highlight before kind of going like zero to guardianship that there is a lot of supports within our waiver programs for individuals who are enrolled. One of the things I wanted to highlight to make sure everyone was aware of is that our process includes a person-centered service planning process with a person-centered support team. And so individuals are able to identify anyone they want to be part of a person-centered support team to help them along their journey with home and community-based services planning, with life planning, with choices. And that team could help sort of stem the tide of a need of guardianship because they can help support them in a lot of those decisions and help identify where someone may just need additional support and not necessarily to lose their sort of rights to autonomy. So I wanted to highlight that. Every person in our home and community-based services and in our nursing facilities that are enrolled in our programs has a service coordinator that is important to coordinate all of their services and be a resource and convene people when needed to help the person. And so I would say as a normal course of someone's journey, if there's a guardianship in question, that a first and good step would be to also ensure that the person's service coordinator is aware of the situation. Sometimes they're not made aware, which I think is very unfortunate because we have over 30 services in our home and community-based waivers that can be helpful to help someone remain independent, help them with things that might be of concern or alarm to their health and welfare. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of those very quickly. So one is benefits counseling. Benefits counseling is available to individuals enrolled in our waiver programs, and they can meet with a benefits counselor once a month to review all of their financial information, all of their public benefits, and see what they can connect to further. We also have cognitive rehabilitation therapy. So for an individual who may have experienced a stroke, and may have to relearn a lot of things that they were able to do independently, that they may get stuck at certain places. Cognitive rehab therapy is available to them to help them kind of relearn or gain additional skills to help them maintain tasks such as paying bills on time or getting to health appointments or relearning how to take transportation and navigate their community. We also have personal attendance services within the waiver programs. That is our most utilized service, and that is a person that provides assistance to the individual in their own home with bathing and dressing and light housekeeping, meal preparation, scheduling appointments with the individual, helping them read their mail, organize their mail, and even help them go on errands and go shopping and do all of those things. We also have community integration, which is kind of a lower level of cognitive rehab therapy. That is, the whole purpose is to help people achieve their goals in learning things. So again, that's if there's a new SEPTA transportation route, community integration services can help them navigate that and learn different routes. Community integration can help them get connected with more social activities to prevent isolation. And then we also have chore services. I'm excited that we are adding chore services back again into our waiver programs. And chore services is very critical for the health and safety within someone's home, because chore services really takes care of more substantial household needs. If someone is a fall risk, chore services can be used to sort of remove fall potential things in the way that could create a fall or an unsafe environment. And so we're really excited to have that come back in for some individuals who may be progressing along a pathway to potentially hoarding. Chore services is critical to kind of help maintain that, perhaps prevent that, and in coordination with behavioral health services, ensure that the person in their home remains safe. We do find in hoarding situations, sometimes folks go to a pathway of guardianship, so we're hoping to prevent that as well. Service coordinators are also critical in the conversation to prevent guardianship, because they can provide education and resources on very important tools such as psychiatric advance directives. We find if individuals have psychiatric advance directives where their plan is known in advance, what their preferences are known in advance, when an individual sort of experiences a crisis situation, then it really helps provide a roadmap for everyone who's supporting them and helping them sort of move past that crisis situation, hopefully without the need of going to guardianship, because the decisions are made, known, and shared. And so that's another reason why we encourage folks to tap into the service coordinator if you're going through that journey or facing a petition or an application, to see what information they have. Because I find that in those critical informations where everyone's working towards the health and welfare of the individuals, when they don't know decisions have been shared prior, it sort of amps up the risk to guardianship. But if there are pathways already planned, that hopefully that can help prevent a path to full guardianship and maybe help look at lesser levels, such as a temporary guardianship or a power of attorney or things of that nature. And I can say that really looking at the different levels and really taking the time to make sure we're going up through a ladder of what is least restrictive and what is most supportive to the autonomy of the person is critical. And a clear example of that is with our adult protective services in the Office of Long-Term Living. When I had the honor of joining the great team at the Office of Long-Term Living back in 2023, guardianship was top of mind. There were quite a number of petitions that were put forward through the Adult Protective Services process with the intent of helping the person in their time of most need. But what we found was perhaps maybe we were going too fast to the most restrictive. And our teams worked in partnership with our Adult Protective Services contractor to really look at that and look at the numbers and see what can be done to make sure across the board we know that we are working up the ladder of what's least restrictive and what's only absolutely necessary when we're talking about guardianship. So the Office of Long-Term Living developed a tool and a checklist whereby anyone who was going to petition in an adult protective services situation had to fill out this tool and had to share all the different ways they attempted to preserve the person's autonomy and decision-making before petitioning for guardianship, and had to put forward the rationale as to why a guardianship was needed, what it was specifically needed for, how long it might be needed for, and what are potential pathways to ending it. And that checklist has to be provided to us for additional review before any petition moves forward. And what we have found from 2023 to today, that it has greatly reduced the number of petitions that have been coming from our older adult protective services teams. From what I understand in recent numbers coming from the courts, that they've seen a reduction of petitions between the ages of 18 and 59 that were reduced by almost 50%. So it's possible. It's the right thing to do. And I'm happy to be able to highlight that with you here today. And the ways that they are getting those numbers down is, as I mentioned before, they are coordinating and contacting service coordinators, other case managers for other systems, and making sure they're pulling in that person's already established support team if there's one in place. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Pam.
Great. And then our next presenter is John Kennedy, as I said, President and CEO of the Kennedy Law Offices. And he is going to talk about issues connected to Medicaid applications at long-term care facilities and how that can intersect with guardianship.
Thank you, Pam. So we're kind of moving down the continuum of care here. We've had Social Security representative, talk about how to facilitate that process while you're in the community. You've got DHS offering fantastic options for people to prepare for their healthcare decision-making needs, financial, what have you. Now we're moving into my environment. I represent nursing homes and some hospitals. And one of the things we do a lot for them is obtain guardianships. And I've been on the advisory council for many years. So that's why I'm part of this panel as we're talking about now. Obviously, long-term care facilities are going to provide a lot of care to senior citizens. I mean, the average age is 82 of a person that's a long-term care resident. So we are, this factual scenario is that someone is in the nursing home, they're incapacitated, and they need to have somebody available to make either healthcare decisions or financial decisions. And I'll focus primarily on the financial decisions because that, I'll be honest, is the primary driver behind the need. So the scenario is someone's in the nursing home, they need to either have Medicaid eligibility established, or maybe they have private pay resources out there and they need to have them spent down towards their cost of care. Because if you take a step back, Medicaid is, for the poorest, very limited resources you're allowed before Medicaid kicks in. And the Social Security representative payee issue, when you're talking about an alternative to guardianship, when you're eligible for Medicaid, the CAO, in order to state and the laws say, Medicaid will pay for your care, but if you have any income, you've got to pay your income over. And they put that right in their notice. It says, okay, Mary, put your $1,000 in and then take your personal needs out of there, and then the state will pay the rest. So when we're talking about alternatives to guardianship, that Social Security rep payee situation, long-term care facilities are one of the only institutionalized people that can apply for and become Social Security rep payee. So if the only thing you need is a Social Security rep payee status, then apply for that, and that could obviate the need for a guardianship. So that's an easy, maybe sometimes when it's being fought, it's not so easy, getting Social Security payments in. But if that can dispense with a need for an entire guardianship proceeding, that's a good result. So where are we? We're in a situation where no POA was issued prior to incapacity, right? I say no family available, or they might not be able to assist. So maybe if they want to assist, so you apply for Medicaid, you need all this financial documentation. So I'd love to assist, but mom would never release or appoint us as a POA. I have no knowledge of her finances. I'm here to help, but I can't help you. And also, I don't have any money to pay to have a guardian appointed or have myself appointed as the family member as a guardian for my mom. So then the nursing facility in order to get paid for the services rendered, they need to move forward and do something. So that often is what triggers, the guardianship analysis. So you have, with Act 61, but the law has always been that guardianship is the least restrictive alternative. There's definitely more of a focus on it now with Act 61, appointment of counsel, and the whole bit. So then from my office and being on the council and working with judges, trying to explore as many options, alternatives in lieu of getting a full-blown guardianship. And we've spoken to the provider trade associations and trying to educate the nursing homes and to hospitals to a certain extent on maybe where we're heading in the future with this. So hopefully we'll have some positive results. So again, you have, you want to move to, here we go. You can go back one. Okay, so financial information is needed for the Medicaid application, or financial resources need to be accessed to pay for care. So you can go to the next slide. I don't have too many slides here. So I'm hoping people have questions when we're done, by the way, because we're gonna have time. So, in lieu of going for a guardianship, if you have an incapacitated resident and really nobody to assist the facility can apply for Medicaid. An administrator is allowed to apply to preserve the retroactivity date. They can appeal. So now you have an appeal pending for the Medicaid application. Once the appeal is filed, you have preserved the Medicaid eligibility retroactivity date. And at that time, we're contemporaneous there with, we're analyzing on behalf of our clients, what can we do? Do you need a guardian? You may. Like the Judge Murphy was saying earlier, if there are resources in the house that has to be sold and what have you, that may be the only answer. But if we are, if we file an appeal and we have a hearing date, as the attorneys for the skilled nursing facility, we can request via administrative subpoenas, the Bureau of Hearings and Appeals, the financial documents that are being requested. Let's say if it's simple, one bank account, they need 5 years of statements, and we can get a BHA subpoena to produce those documents in lieu of a full-blown guardianship. One, that's the least restrictive alternative, and could be a much shorter process. There are hurdles to that. Some banks will not comply. And if they don't comply with the Bureau of Hearings and Appeals subpoena, that's an administrative law subpoena. And in order to enforce that, we have to pop up into the Court of Common Pleas to try to enforce that subpoena. So that's quite a process. But we do it frequently. We get subpoenas frequently. We get the information that's needed. And if there's no problems that arise, well, then so be it. If the subpoenas, show there's some sort of problems or inappropriate transfers or things like that, then you might be down a path where you need somebody with broader authority. So that's a when the judges, I can anticipate moving forward with guardianships, and particularly the judges that are on this advisory council saying, well, what's needed? Show me the PA 162, show me the request from the county assistance office that what documents do they need? So one of the things we were kind of exploring there is, okay, now if you have a guardianship petition filed, can the orphans court issue subpoenas to try to get those documents as well? Possibly. Haven't gone that route. It's been discussed kind of like procedurally, how we go about doing that, number one. But number two, at that point, you're already in the guardianship proceeding, right? So you've already gone through, gotten the expert report, got into court. But when I'm talking with the providers, I'm telling them that you can anticipate judges saying, okay, I know you have the guardianship petition filed, but what else can be accomplished? But again, the BHA subpoenas, and that's going to be the easiest, cleanest way to get something done. And for those that are in this world, annually the clients have to have a redetermination as to whether they're eligible or not. So somebody needs to respond. So the first time, and I try to find these resolutions. So the first time around we do subpoenas, I guess that's fine. But then if next time around, are we doing that again? Are we getting a denial? Are we doing subpoenas? Can we get the information? Is there updated information? So that's kind of a stumbling block there. But I thought one of the, what will create something creative, I did not come up with this. There was a suggestion, like if you get a limited guardian appointed, which I still haven't done this yet, but only for the purposes of getting someone eligible for Medicaid. So then you have, let's say they have a cooperative family member and they're working with you and they say, okay, you get the guardian report. So we have a limited guardian report. Then the limited guardian, maybe they can set up bank accounts where there's the family member and the resident name on the bank account. And so the next time around, when there's a redetermination, that bank account can be accessed by the family member because they're joint on the account. I thought that was a creative solution where you would have a limited guardianship. You wouldn't have to do the petition for review. It would fall on its own and then take it from there.
All right. Thank you so much.